Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We have a lot to get to. I'm Casey Schulberg, Collier County Waterkeeper, and your host for the next 12 days of podcasts coming to you directly from Glasgow, Scotland. If during the program you have questions, just put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them at the end of the program. Tomorrow, I will be joined by climate change expert, Kissimmee Waterkeeper, and my friend, Dr. John Capice. But for the moment, for tonight, with yesterday's program, I'm hosting alone. Thank you for joining us. So what is COP26? COP stands for Conference of the Parties, and we have had 25 of them. This one is the 26th. There was no COP last year because of COVID. In 2019, COP took place in Madrid. COP24 was in Poland. COP23 in Germany, COP22 in Morocco. And the one you all know about, where the Paris Climate Accord was signed, was COP21 in Paris. Today, as you know, we are at a tipping point in our attempt to claw ourselves back from the precipice of climate change crisis. We have to take action. I think it's commonly understood that we need to take action today if we're going to preserve this biosphere that we so love. We are all working to keep temperatures from rising above 2 degrees from pre-industrial levels, and we're pursuing efforts to curb global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That is what we're all working toward. This day today was the day when heads of state addressed the assembly. There were approximately 120 attending the UN event, which considering that there are only 195 nations in the world, constitutes a lot of heads of state. Boris Johnson said we are 1 minute to midnight. Prince Charles said we need to be on a wartime footing. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that putting a price on pollution is key to pushing down global emissions. He said it was akin to establishing a worldwide minimum corporate tax of 15%, which, as you know, was passed just last week at the G20. Now, that's all well and good, but we have to remember that the developed nations have gotten us into this mess, and it will be up to us to pull us out of the mess that we're in and try to repair the damage. So we can't be expecting less developed nations to shoulder the burden to the extent that developed nations need to step up. President Biden in the closing session said that our administration would commit to meeting a goal of reducing US emissions by 50% to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. So he has laid out the case for making pretty strong progress in the coming years. These official pronouncements are good. Don't get me wrong, but let us see whether the world leaders take actions commensurate with the gravity of the situation we face and are not just spouting platitudes that we all like to hear. As I mentioned in yesterday's program, China's President Xi Jinping and Russia's President Vladimir Putin are not attending. That is a bit disappointing to see that they're not with us here in Glasgow. Greta Thunberg arrived in Glasgow this morning by train. She has been notably critical of the Scottish government's climate policy, saying that the country was not a leader on climate change. As the First Minister had previously stated, Scotland has pledged to cut emissions by 75% by 2030 and to be net zero by 2045. But the last 3 years, those targets have not been met. Sir Richard Attenborough stressed that our motivation must be fear, not hope, which is a lovely way to phrase our mission, that we must be motivated not by fear, but by hope. And that he also said that young people give us the impetus we need to rewrite our story. He also said countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Again, it's going to be up to the developed nations to shoulder this burden. It is our responsibility. So much for the big picture. A few updates from the ground here in Glasgow. The Erskine Bridge, just to the west of here where we are at the conference, was closed today for about 90 minutes to allow the Rainbow Warrior, the Greenpeace vessel, to pass under the bridge carrying some youth climate activists. Train service resumed from London to Glasgow. It was shut down for several hours yesterday because extreme weather in London caused a tree to fall on the wires and they had to shut down rail service. That caused the delay of the opening ceremonies yesterday for an hour. So there you are, extreme weather is causing problems here on the ground and actually caused the opening ceremony to be delayed for an hour. Today we shot some footage of the goings on at the conference. There was an extreme amount of security because all the heads of state are here. So it was really a lockdown situation. But Michael Fiddler, who is our tech expert and cameraman, went into the conference and shot some footage. So we'd like to share that with you now. And we'll come back just on the tail end of that footage. Thank you. So this was early in the morning when there was practically no one around at 10 a.m.
Forests and rivers for mining oil. We don't need the oil. We don't need the petroleum. How can you construct at 6 billion a pipeline that's crossing so many rivers?
That was a demonstration by Ugandan citizens. Also protest by a congregation in Bangladesh. This is the security entrance to the conference. And here, just to give you an idea how many people were trying to get in, the security was really tight because of the heads of state in attendance today. So this will give you an idea of the number of people trying to get into the conference today, this morning. There's the armadillo-shaped building ahead of us. As you can see, it's cold and windy in Glasgow today, but it wasn't raining. It's been raining these last few days. It's nice to have a little break in the rain. Just again, people taking time to get into the conference. It was closed to retrieving your badges until 2 p.m. today because of security for the heads of state in town. You can see the vast amount of security on the ground. People making their way. More security, a lot of security. In fact, our videographer was briefly detained, and they searched his camera equipment to make sure he wasn't carrying anything suspicious. This is the museum where there'll be a reception tonight for the heads of state. And this, we photographed this yesterday where the flag was, where the banner was up, and today it had gotten blown down by the wind. So there's just a few clips from today's activities at the conference. So this series of podcasts that we're bringing you on a daily basis from Glasgow is being made by waterkeepers and for waterkeepers. The waterkeepers around the world are working tirelessly to staunch the tide of climate change damage. And one of our team members is a great example of how waterkeepers are fighting to preserve not only our planet and our existence, but the water as well. So earlier today, we interviewed a gentleman that I didn't really know 2 weeks ago, but I've now gotten to know and whom I immensely respect. That's Chris Wilkie. He's the Global Advocacy Manager for the Waterkeeper Alliance. So we shot an interview with him a little earlier today, and we'd like to share that with you now. here with Chris Wilkie, who just arrived in Glasgow last night and is getting his Glaswegian legs under him. And Chris is the Global Advocacy Manager for the Waterkeeper Alliance. And he's been so helpful. I mean, he's got a lot of things he wants to accomplish this week for the Waterkeeper Alliance and for his programs. But he's also been really helpful suggesting content for us for these next 12 days and bringing in other waterkeepers to participate in the show, whether they're here on the ground in Glasgow or whether they're phoning in from points around the globe. So Chris, I turn it over to you. I'd love to hear a bit of your wisdom and knowledge.
Well, thanks so much, Casey, and thanks for organizing this whole thing and giving voice to so many people that are here. There's a lot of hope for this Conference of the Parties, this COP, and in my view, we're at a critical moment in human history. We saw the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, report out in August, which basically warned that we are in danger of hitting these tipping points that we won't be able to recover from. They've already told us that these are the world's top scientists, that the sea level rise is going to continue for centuries. That part is baked in, but we still have a chance to hold global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. It's an outside chance. We can also hold it within 2 degrees Celsius. Unfortunately, we are still tracking for a steady state of over 3 degrees Celsius climate change. And that will be catastrophic. That will unleash more sea level rise. It will cause more droughts and superstorms. The other thing is that the science has greatly improved since the time of the Paris Accords in 2015. We can now attribute individual climatic events, many individual climatic events, to human-caused climate change. And so it's not just, well, the superstorm might have been climate change and it might not. They can now tell. And what they've confirmed is that every region of the globe, every region is experiencing severe impacts. Some regions will get it worse. And it's affecting people up and down the economic scale too. There's a lot of talk about people at the bottom of the economic scale being the most impacted, but it's impacting everybody. None of us are getting out of this unscathed. And we are just right now at the very beginning of it. And we are probably our very last chance to do something. So there is a lot of hope on this COP. And there's a lot of attention from world leaders. Everyone's looking to see what India and China are doing, because those are the most populous countries and they're very fast developing.
Chris, did you see the report from China just dropped on the 28th of October that they will not hit their targets that they announced at the last COP, and that they expect that they will rise to peak carbon emissions by 2030, and they won't hit net zero until 30 years after that. So that's a pretty disturbing development on the part of the Chinese, who are not, and Xi is not attending the conference. That also does not augur well for the ability of the global leaders to try to rein this in.
Right, but let's not forget, that's all true, Casey, and that is a big problem. But let's not forget that the developed world has a higher carbon per capita impact than China or India. So we need to deal with both of those extremes. But those are two key elements, and we definitely need China's participation. We need India's participation, and we need the developed nations that really got us to where we are with this crisis also to be looking and be willing to make some sacrifices, because I don't think anyone's getting out of this without sacrifices. So specifically for Waterkeeper Alliance, this is our first COP since 2015 with the Paris Accords. And we really are going here with several missions. One of the first ones is for divestment in fossil fuels. What the IPCC report has confirmed is that in order to have any pathway at all to hold climate change to 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius, we need to stop developing new fossil fuel sources. And we need to aggressively shut down the dirtiest forms of energy. We understand we can't change our whole energy system overnight, but coal and tar sands are so inefficient and put out so much carbon. Those need to be aggressively sunsetted. And then the rest of the oil and coal that's still in the ground in new reserves that haven't been fully explored yet, that carbon needs to stay in the ground. There's no way that we can continue to develop new oil and gas and somehow offset it. The equation doesn't work out. The math doesn't work in our favor on that. And it has even led the director of the IEA, the International Energy Agency, to say that in order to hold climate to 1.5 in a path to net zero, we have to full stop all investment in new oil and gas development. That means no new offshore oil drilling, no new fracking fields exploited. We understand that there's some production will continue for the time being, but we have a lot of production that's going on, but we can't develop these new oil fields. And one of our key allies, a coalition that we're in on this work, is the Insure Our Future Coalition, which is specifically targeting the role of insurance companies in underwriting the climate crisis. There are lots of different ways to approach divestment. Investment from banks is one of them, but there are thousands of banks, and there's only a few large enough insurance companies to underwrite coal, oil, and tar sands projects. And these insurance companies have the opportunity to lead on the climate crisis. And we've already seen some leadership, particularly from European insurance companies on coal. There's, I think, at least 26 European insurers that have either a policy moving to phase out coal development or prohibit any underwriting of coal projects. A few companies in North America, not quite as many, but they're falling short on oil and gas. So that's about all I'm going to divulge right now, but we have Insure Our Future Coalition has a report coming out on Wednesday, November 3rd, and we're going to identify the leaders and laggards, and we're going to name the names, and we'll be working directly to pressure those companies to get out of the fossil fuel business.
That's great, Chris. Yeah, we're looking forward to that on Wednesday. And tell us a little bit about some of the other waterkeepers we're going to reach out to and try to pull into the programs over the next 12 days.
Well, we don't have our slate totally set yet, as you know, but we have been in touch with a few of our waterkeepers around the world. My work is mostly outside the US, and so we're hoping to get Bruno Montefiore from the Marañón River in Peru to talk to us about the hydro dam development there and what work they're doing to oppose that. We're hoping to get Rashima Ingram from the Bahamas here in order to talk about some of her work on adaptation and also to fight fossil fuel development, offshore drilling in the Bahamas, where there currently is no oil production right now. So that's one of those high priority areas. And then we understand you may be able to help us with your French translation, Casey, if we can get some folks on from Senegal to talk about the offshore drilling development there. Senegal also is not an oil producing nation, and they are due to begin production offshore there in 2022, I believe, so next year. So the timing of this conference couldn't be more critical, and I'm really thankful to be connected to so many great waterkeepers and other allies around the world that are really on the front lines of tackling this crisis.
So let's also, sorry, I was just going to say, let's talk about the social injustice caused by climate change and some of the people that we might be trying to call upon to hear their voices, whether they're in points around the globe or here with us at the conference.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. As I alluded to earlier, the impacts of climate change do fall disproportionately on the people that had the least to do with creating the problem. And probably no more so than indigenous communities around the world that have been living in a sustainable way for thousands of years and really rely on clean and healthy watersheds and intact ecosystems. They've been the stewards of those ecosystems for thousands of years. One of the things that we're going to be looking at with this conference is the idea of false solutions. There's a lot of greenwashing going on here. I saw it at the airport when I got out of the plane. There's big billboards for hydrogen and sustainability and all these things that they're talking about. But a lot of those so-called sustainable solutions, someone is paying some price for that. And it's usually not the affluent communities. It's usually people in undeveloped areas. And so we need a just transition, just as much as we need a transition. And important thing to keep in mind is those folks are coming here to this conference, and we shouldn't think of them as victims. They are powerful leaders. We're going to be working very closely with some indigenous leaders opposing hydropower development, for example, and we hope to have some of them on your show as very, very strong, eloquent spokespeople that are basically not only here fighting for a clean and healthy planet, but the preservation of their culture. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them and working with them. And I hope that the leaders are taking note as these people come forward and realize that we're all going to need sacrifice, but the sacrifice should not fall disproportionately on the people that we're not the ones that got us here.
Yeah, that's so important. And we're hoping to also cover some of the protests that are going on, some of the young people that are here, and some of the indigenous also pushback on the global top-down systems that are so often damaging to people less advantaged. So we really want to try to give voice to those people. Chris, I really want to thank you for your leadership on these issues, for the tone that you're setting. It's absolutely so critical. So privileged to be part of this effort and the Waterkeeper Alliance in general that is doing tremendous work around the globe. So thank you very much, Chris. Really, really appreciate your input, and we'll look forward to all you contribute during the next 12 days.
Okay, and if I could just put in one plug before I go,
Yes.
one of the reasons why we're here is to undam the UN. We are here to, we have a petition that is going right now that there should be no climate funds invested in new hydro dam development. And people can go to undam.org and sign the petition. There's also something on the Waterkeeper Alliance page that highlights this, and that's an action that we can all take to join that petition to send the leaders a message that we can't be using counterfeit credits to allow more oil and gas development, but especially to destroy watersheds around the world built by building more hydro dams.
Yeah, great. That's terrific, Chris. Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you all week long and into the following week. We have a lot of work to do.
Thanks so much, Casey. Right. I'm looking. Great.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. So there you have a voice, a wonderful voice, one of our outstanding water keepers that are just doing amazing work all over the world. Chris is a tremendous resource, and he's going to be working hard this week, and he's going to be giving us ideas. A couple of things that I want to just point out that Chris alluded to is that the inequities that climate change causes, and the social unrest or the social upheaval that can come as a result of climate change, with migration and disruption of people's lives and their societies. So we need to be very aware of that. And the voices of less developed nations are here. They are here. They are loud and proud, and they're eloquent, and we need to hear them. We need to listen to them. We need to heed their advice. The same thing is true for young people. I mean, the young people are really leading the charge, and in a lot of ways, they have the most at stake, because if the world goes south, then what kind of a world might we leave for them? So they're really energized, and we need to be humble and considerate of those voices and take them into account. So that's all I want to say for this episode. I encourage you all to tune in tomorrow, same time. We'll have some more guests all week long. And today, the conference was so locked down for those speakers that we weren't really able to get in to the conference, and a lot of the sessions only begin tomorrow. So hopefully tomorrow and the rest of the week, we'll be able to get in and get you in front of some of those sessions and the pertinent stuff that's developing on the ground here. So we really encourage you to tune back in 3 o'clock tomorrow, or wherever you are. It might be a different time zone depending on the world. We're 7 o'clock here in Glasgow. But thank you so much for tuning in, and we will look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you very much.